Hi, my name is Lily, and recently Dad gave me a safe with a real treasure inside. However, to open it, I had to undergo numerous trials. Since the moment I was born, my dad had raised me on his own as my mother had passed away during labor. All his life, Dad had been recalling this and couldn't come to terms with the loss while bringing me up. He put family values first and said there was nothing more important than nearest and dearest people. I followed this rule for so many years until I went to high school. I had to sacrifice a lot of things for the sake of constantly helping my dad and grandparents. Of course, I love them very much, but I was not satisfied at all with the way things were. Since I was not going to immediately respond to the first call of help for all my life, at first I just began telling my dad that I had to do too much homework and I would not be able to go to my grandparents who lived in the outskirts. He was upset, but came to terms with it, which I was incredibly happy about. Of course, I spent my free time not only studying, but also hanging out with my friends and having fun. For all the previous years, when I was chained with family values, I was distancing myself more and more from my family, but I didn't find anything bad about this. One day, Dad came to my room and brought me a small gift, which, according to him, was the most valuable one in my life. He held a ring in his hand, and even from afar, I could see the shining rubies. I was absolutely delighted, but when I saw the ring closer, my delight immediately disappeared. The ring was made of multicolored wire, and instead of rubies, there was ordinary cut glass in the red color. Dad said that it was a special day then, but I didn't listen to him because I was overwhelmed with bitterness. Once while swimming in the pool in the backyard, I lost that treasured ring, but I didn't attach any importance to this. Exactly 1 year later, on that very special day again, my father brought me another present. It was a small safe with a combination lock. I thought that there was money in it because usually large sums are stored in a safe. Dad didn't tell me the code, but he gave me a hint. Grandma Molly was supposed to help me get to know one part of the code. Another part was related to the most important day for our family, and the key to the third part was the ring he had given me. When he left, I almost burst into tears because of frustration. Why would he play me like that? Why couldn't he just give me everything that was in the safe without stupid puzzles about our family? After organizing my thoughts, I realized that the chances of opening the safe quickly were very small. I did not really count on the help of my relatives. For a whole year, I did not communicate with them. Well, I didn't remember what was special about this day, and I also managed to lose the ring. Being desperate, I looked at the combination lock. The first line of the lock was a 4-digit number. The second and third ones were 6-digit numbers. I tried to enter all the important dates that I knew, including birthdays, but this didn't bring any results. Now, the easiest way was to try and find the ring in the backyard because most likely it was not lost without a trace. The money inside the safe seemed very attractive to me, so there was nothing that could stop me. I was crawling on my knees all over the lawn for several hours, but I still couldn't find it. There was no ring in the pool either, so there was only one way left. I had to examine the sewage channel of the pool. I had never felt such disgust as when I had to dig through that stinky mud. Half an hour later, I was covered in dirt, and the ring was never found. If I had known that trinket was so important, I would have kept it under lock and key. The next day, an even greater trial awaited me. It was a trip to Grandma Molly's. The problem was that at the mere thought of the trip, I suddenly started going bright red with shame. Last year, I ignored her request for help, but now I'm going to ask her for it myself? I was really afraid that my grandmother would not let me in the doorway, or would start to look reproachful at me or scold me. However, contrary to my expectations, my grandma was incredibly happy to see me. First of all, I helped my grandma with household chores in order not to feel that selfish. And as it turned out, she needed the simplest help. Then we sat down at the table, and I asked my grandma about the most significant date in her life. She said that this was the year when Grandpa finally returned from the war, risking his life. He conveyed valuable information which determined the outcome of the battle. For this, he received an award from the president himself. Many years have passed, and I already forgot about these, so I was terribly ashamed. Until late in the evening, I stayed with Grandma, listening to her stories about our family with interest. At home, I entered the required year in the first line, and I heard a long-awaited click sound. I was extremely happy, and not just because of the first deciphered date, but also because of an emotional talk with my grandma. From now on, I promised myself that I would visit her more often. For the next few days, I thought about another date, but I couldn't find anything. Then I had to go to my second grandma, but my grandparents were not really happy to see me. They were a little bit upset because I had not visited them for a whole year, for which I had to apologize for a very long time. Grandma could not hold back her emotions, and with tears in her eyes, she hugged me. They forgave me and invited me to sit at the table with them. When I asked about the most important day for our family, they confidently named the date when my mother found out that she would have a baby. That is me. The thing is that the doctors diagnosed my mom with infertility, but this happened to be a real miracle. At that moment, I hardly managed to hold back my tears. All her life, my mom was waiting for me to be born, but she never got to see her daughter. At that moment, I began to understand Dad's feelings and suddenly remembered about the ring. It was the most valuable thing that remained after your mom died. That's exactly what he said about it. I felt like a real soulless monster that lost this valuable thing with no remorse and did not even pay much attention to this. After saying thanks to my grandparents, I went home and the click sound of the safe was heard again. I was supposed to find out the last date, and it was related to the ring. The date of the wedding day did not fit, and I found myself at a dead end. I could not ask my dad for help because I was not able to tell him about the lost ring. Despite the fact that it was late in the evening, I went to the backyard again to continue searching. This time, I was looking for a ring, not only for deciphering the code, but also for the sake of my dad and the memory of my mother. I haven't found the ring, which is why I couldn't sleep at all. That night, for some reason, Dad didn't ask me anything about the safe, and I was scared that he knew that I had lost the ring. I needed to open the safe at any cost, so I came up with an idea. Mom had a sister, and they were very close with each other. The problem is that I did not communicate with her for many years. However, my intentions were serious, and I decided to go on a trip. After classes, I went to visit my aunt, and she was shocked to see me. My aunt said that I started looking exactly like my mother, and that sounded like a compliment to me. I asked her about the ring, and in response, I heard a story that I would remember my entire life. Once my young mom and dad were still dating and dreaming of getting married. Unfortunately, they did not have enough money to buy a good ring, so Dad came up with the idea to make it with his own hands. For several days, he had been making a ring from which he found investing all the love he had for my mom in it. He decorated it with red glass, which he polished and cut himself as if it were a ruby. On that important day, when Dad proposed to Mom, she was very happy, so she immediately came to my sister to share her joy. On that day, they both did not sleep. All night, they were crying and laughing with happiness at the same time. After this conversation, I came back home with a guilt deep inside my soul. I was so selfish towards my family that at first I couldn't even be touched by the story. I was so ashamed that I was ready to melt into the ground and disappear forever. The most painful part was the ring that I had lost. Sooner or later, Dad would find out about the loss and would be very upset, which I really didn't want to happen. I was not even that happy about the money in the safe. I entered the last date in the combination lock, and the door finally opened. Holding my breath, I looked into the safe, and inside, on a piece of velvet fabric, I saw a ring made of multicolored wire with a red glass instead of a ruby. It was the most valuable gift in my life. As soon as I came to my senses after the shock, I realized that my dad found it. At that moment, I jumped up and rushed to my dad holding the ring. After seeing me, he immediately realized that I regretted everything that I had done. He comforted me and didn't scold me for losing the ring. We were talking about Mom for a long time. After this situation, I learned to appreciate my dearest people and realize that everyone in the family should support and understand each other, as well as just being near. Every weekend, I try to visit my grandmothers or aunt to help them with something, or just to keep them company.